Hello and welcome to Joy Newsroom. My name is Carlos Caloni. Coming up, closure of 4 radio stations in Bawku, causing anger among some residents. More, as one of the owners described the NCA's action as unfair. We'll hear from him and the residents. Also, sanctions lifted on Niger. Why could possibly be the implication of this latest action by ECOWAS? We'll hear from the thoughts of an international relations expert. An NDC and NPP supporters exchange reportedly blows at Busumu in the Savannah region as former President John Dramani Mahama arrives in the Dongo for the funeral of the late Queen Mother. We'll hear from leadership of the two parties in the area. Also, government plans to increase investment to reduce unemployment. We'll hear from President Akufo-Addo as he charges all stakeholders to join the fight against unemployment. And in business, IMF charges program to at stake to program conditions and reforms to aid in quick recovery of economy. Details and more in this particular. Please stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining us here. Now, some residents in Bawku are incensed over the National Communication Authority's closure of 4 radio stations in the area. The closure, according to the NCA, is as a result of what it describes as incendiary utterance that it believes contributed to the ongoing Bawku conflict. The NCA, in a statement dated February 24, 2024, says the action is based on Section 13(1)(e) of the Electronic Communications Act, which empowers the authority to revoke the license of stations on the grounds of national security threats or in the interest of the public. We'll hear from the residents shortly, but first let's look at the NCA statement, which is there on your screen. And it reads that the National Communications Authority, NCA, wishes to inform the general public that 4 radio stations in Bawku, Upper East region have been shut down. The stations are Bawku FM, Source FM, Zara FM, and Guma FM. This follows the recommendations of the Upper East Regional Security Council and on the advice of the Ministry of National Security that the operations of the said FM stations and the incendiary utterances of their panelists or presenters have contributed to the escalation of the Bawku conflict, leading to the loss of lives and property in Bawku and its environs. It goes on to say, consequently, the NCA has invoked its powers to shut down the station in accordance with Section 13(1)(e) of the Electronic Communications Act 2008 at 775, which provides that, quote, the authority may suspend or revoke a license or a frequency authorization where the suspension or revocation is necessary because of national security or in the public interest, end of quote. Now, the NCA will continue to work with all relevant stakeholders to execute its mandate as set out by law and calls on stakeholders to adhere to the tenets and regulations governing the communications industry. And this was issued by the National Communications Authority. Now, we can now listen to the reaction of some of these residents in Bawku.
NCA have something, every radio station have something we call Skylight, that they can sit wherever they are to monitor the radio station, their programs, and whatever they are doing. So they could have get people to monitor this radio station, get to know the corporate, and then sanction them accordingly. But if you wait, and now that 2 to 3 months now, we have not recorded any violence in the Bawku enclaves, and you are closing radio stations in Bawku because of the conflict in Bawku. And what about Wale? What is happening there? Yesterday, as I speak, a car was attacked in Wale and people were injured badly. Wale is now becoming more crime scene than Bawku, but nothing, no curfew, no arrests have been happening there. But if it is because of the Bawku conflict that NCA is closing it, I thank them for that. But they have to also know that there are some other things they have to do. Facebook is one of the dangerous tools that has escalated the Bawku conflict up to this point. We're having Facebook account, Sibdo account called the Moshinaba, the Bawku links, who have caused more violence, who have caused a lot of life that have lost in Bawku. They will post your picture, next 2-3 days you are killed. They will post your picture, next 3-5 days you are killed, turning people to motherless, turning people to fatherless. And yet they cannot investigate and arrest these civil accounts, but they are rather closing radio station. Right now, some people during curfew hours can even besiege a community and kill 3, 4, 5. About last year, some people besieged a community called Barbari and killed 8 individuals at a go. Some went to an area and killed innocent women during curfew hours. And because we have radio station, if something like that is happening and we speak or we talk through the radio, it will create attention. Everybody will be aware. The meeting will run and go. But now we are doomed, like a blind man pulling a blind man. So in Bawku here, we are doomed.
What we are seeing is that there have been an ongoing attack at the Walewale too, where buses are constantly being attacked at Walewale. As we speak, yesterday there was an attack at Walewale, a bus at Walewale. These constant attacks, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it, but rather coming to close radio stations and throwing the weight of military and heavy hardship in Bawku. You know, right now they've shifted the curfew from 6 to 6, and people are suffering. Life in Bawku is very terrible. Yet there is the Walewale, where the vice president comes from, is even becoming worse off than Bawku, where there are constant attacks. People have been killed, people have been maimed at that enclave, and nobody is saying anything. Or are we saying that the vice president, who happened to be a Mapusi man, is suppressing the security from doing their duties? Because the same curfews that have been imposed in Bawku should be imposed at Walewale to also make sure that the attacks and the roads from the highway from Accra, Kumasi to Bawku and to the Upper East is safe, because there has not been a week that will pass without any record of an attack at Walewale. So people are rather apprehensive.
Now, Nuruddin Guma is General Manager for Guma FM, one of the stations that have been closed, and has joined us for a conversation. Guma, you have said earlier that the NCA's action is unfair. Why that?
Well, let me first of all say good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your cherished viewers. Now, I can talk for Guma FM. Guma FM, we have been off air since December. Past 3 months, we have not been on air. We have not been talking. So how do you accuse us that we have said certain things that will breach the peace of Bawku? That's the first thing. And apart from that, I was expecting RegSec, NewSec, NCA, National Security to engage the various radio stations within the Bawku municipality first.
Is that to say you were not engaged prior to this closure?
Nobody has ever engaged us. RegSec have not engaged us, NCA have not engaged us, National Security have not engaged us. We were just sitting, they just stormed the radio stations with military men, and they threw a letter to you, say read the letter. You read the letter, it's about they are suspending your authorization. The next moment, I've heard that other radio stations, they have picked away transmitters. Because Guma FM, we are off air, our transmitter is in Accra for repairs. But for the past 3 months, we have not been transmitting. But I heard reports that they picked transmitters in other radio stations. For example, Bawku FM, when they got there, the guy who was on duty is a relatively very young person. As we speak up to now, the boy is very scared. Because you are in a radio station, before you realize, about 30 policemen will storm into your studios and start loosening your machines. Without any, they haven't been really very fair to us. Okay. And apart from that, the statement NCA issued out, if it is really true, it is about national security threat. They should know that the conflict in Bawku is not just within the Bawku municipality. The conflict in Bawku has spread to Binduri, has spread to Pusga and other districts. As we speak, they said that RegSec sat on 24th of January. As a result of that, they are taking these actions. What happened? Because there was an attack in the Binduri district. There are radio stations in the Binduri district. We have Max Empire. Okay, they have been discussing the Bawku issue.
Mr. Guma, let's also look at what the NCA has been saying with regards to the content, what you say on your platforms and all that. What do you have to say to the claims by the NCA that comments from your presenters and some guests led to this escalation of the conflict in Bawku. What do you say to that assertion by the NCA?
My brother, the name of the rule of the game is evidence. If they think we have been saying certain things that will cause national security threat, they should provide the evidence. They have said presenters and panelists. These presenters and panelists are known. So if they have said certain things, you take them by the law. So they have not provided any evidence that I can tell you that I can provide all the recordings of our work since we started transmitting 1.5 years ago up to date. So if they have evidence that we have said something, they should make it available to us. You have said this thing on this particular day, and we are using it against you. They are not providing the evidence.
Okay. All right.
Once upon a time, I was invited by the police. And the charge was that I was discussing certain things that will bridge the peace in Bawku. I gave the recording of the program to the police. When the police went through the program, I said, my brother, you have not done anything wrong.
All right,
Go.
Mr. Guma, thank you so much. I think the point has been made. We'll keep following this particular story. Meanwhile, I'll attempt to get some reaction from the NC on this particular developing story. I've not been successful, but we'll keep pushing to see what comes out of this particular one. Away from that story, all commercial and economic sanctions imposed on the Republic of Niger have been lifted by sub-regional bloc ECOWAS. Now, the country last year deposed its democratically elected leader, Mohamed Bazoum, prompting a drastic response from the ECOWAS, which had declared zero tolerance for unconstitutional changes in government. In the last few days, Niger, together with Mali and Burkina Faso, announced that they were exiting the regional bloc owing to inhumane sanctions. But at an extraordinary summit yesterday in Abuja, Nigeria, ECOWAS says it was lifting all sanctions off Niger while expecting that established protocols of free movement within the bloc will remain unchanged. President of the ECOWAS Commission, Omar Aliu Toure, at a news conference today, which happened yesterday, explained that the decision is aimed at addressing existential threats facing the region, as he called on the junta-led nations who were planning to quit to actually stay.
With regard to the withdrawal of the 3 countries, the authority notes that the withdrawal will have political, socio-economic, financial, and institutional implications for the 3 countries as well as for ECOWAS as a region. The authority recognizes that the withdrawal will automatically affect the immigration status of the citizens, as they may be required to obtain visas to travel around the region. Citizens may no longer be able to reside or set up businesses under ECOWAS arrangements and may be subject to diverse national laws. The 3 countries will cease to use ECOWAS passports, ECOWAS biometric national identity cards, and the region-wide ECOWAS brown card vehicle insurance. Reviewing the implications at the institutional level, the authority has resolved to lift with immediate effect the following measures imposed on the Republic of Niger. A, closure of land and air borders between ECOWAS countries and Niger to be lifted. No-fly zone of all commercial flights to and from Niger is to be lifted.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, who doubles as chairperson of the ECOWAS heads of state, says the existential threat faced by the sub-region demands that leaders re-examine their approach to constitutional order.
We are gathered here to address pressing developments in our sub-regions surrounding the peace and security, as well as the political situation in the Republic of Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and Mali. We must approach these issues with a sense of unity and commitment to the well-being of our people. permit me to say that the complexity of the issues at hand necessitate a comprehensive and collaborative approach. Accordingly, it is incumbent upon also to engage in constructive dialogue, exercise prudent judgment, and work collectively towards finding enduring solution that will lead to a sustainable peace, security. The gravity of our responsibility as leaders in these challenging times cannot be overstated.
But what's the status of compliance to the sanctions imposed on Niger? My colleague Blessed Soga of the Foreign Affairs Desk joins us live with more. Blessed, what has changed, regarding the sanctions imposed on Niger? Tell us the status of adherence, for instance.
Well, basically nothing has changed, and in fact, the fear is that things are getting worse. It's the reason for which we're seeing the sub-regional body ECOWAS come now with a much more softened tone on what the crisis has always been. The fact that these Sahelian countries, including Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, indicating their readiness to exit the bloc. In fact, a statement which was released by the three countries gives a clear indication that they are out of ECOWAS. But if you're going by Article 91 and the dictates of the constitutional provisions of ECOWAS, that will take a period of 1 year. It's the reason for which we've not seen an outright exit by Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso out of this, regional bloc. But the concern now has been mainly about Niger. The fact that they still have President Mohamed Bazoum, who was deposed last year, still in detention. All we've had is his son being released, after some negotiations by the leader of the Republic of Togo, Faure Gnassingbé, who is still trying as much as possible to engage the military regime in Niger and to try and get some remedial measures to the challenge that ECOWAS is facing now. What the challenge is that ECOWAS has placed sanctions on Niger. That also applies to Guinea, Mali as well, all for, toppling the democratically elected government in their countries. But after the announcement was made by these three countries that the sanctions were not fair and that they were exiting the bloc, ECOWAS feels now that it will be significantly impacted, given the fact that these three countries control about 10% of their GDP. So they would need to handle this with a lot of caution. It's the reason for which we're seeing this reprobate approach of trying as much as possible to extend the olive branch to these three countries, negotiate with them, and try and get them onto the path of democracy. Guinea, Mali were all on the table for many who are looking out for a return to democracy, but things are getting worse as the military regime also there has dissolved the transitional government. It's the reason for which many experts are raising fears that this is not getting any better. And many, especially working under the network of the West African Network for Peace Building, comprising some 750, as many as 750 civil society organizations, are making the argument that a lot of military takeovers might happen in the sub-region because these regimes are getting emboldened and that ECOWAS is not able to readily respond to all of these threats that are facing the sub-region.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Blessed Soga is with our Foreign Affairs Desk here at Join News. And joining us is also Dr. Yaugebe. He is actually head of International Relations Department at Wisconsin University here in Accra. For more on the story, do we know what might have led to the lifting of the ban in the first place?
Thank you very much. I am of the candid opinion that the recent announcement by the three countries, that's Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, might have prompted the ECOWAS to take that rather rash decision. It is also to have to do with the issue of the integrity of the ECOWAS. We are having 15 countries as members of the ECOWAS, and these crises in the sub-region definitely have affected the position, the activities of the ECOWAS, and therefore necessarily there should be some kind of reaction to those sanctions that have moved the three countries to take that rather unfortunate decision to leave the ECOWAS. So these are actions and reactions from both sides of the pendulum. One on the side of the ECOWAS, the other the position of those three countries.
Okay, so now let's look at the implication of the decision by ECOWAS. Some are arguing that this is actually going to embolden other, countries who are considering these military takeovers, knowing very well that after some few weeks, ECOWAS would come back and say, well, we are lifting the bans and all that. What do you make of the implication of the decision by ECOWAS at this point in time?
Let's look at the fundamental issue. Let us never overlook the fact that majority of the member states of ECOWAS are economically poor. Structurally, they have not been working well, and they have challenges, not only economically, but even politically. And they were just hanging in there. And of course, related to this is also their international standing. Majority of these countries, they are indebted. Apart from that, they have ongoing crises pertaining to civil conflicts, insurgency and what have you, terrorism and what have you. All these things have implications for their own well-being. I'm talking of those three countries. In fact, we may even add Guinea. So those are fundamental issues that confronted some of them and then led to these coup d'etat. Now, you cannot say that a member country of the ECOWAS has staged a coup d'etat, therefore you are going to intervene militarily as we were deciding earlier on last year. Because of the sanctions imposed on them, I had the opportunity to talk to some of their top officials. And the sanctions were biting on them. It was actually dragging them down. So for them, the easy way out was to decide to leave the ECOWAS. The point you raised, that if they decide to take coups in the sub-region, maybe even after victory, some other nations or some other leaders, military leaders decide to take coup d'etat. And then those coup d'etats are successful. And ECOWAS decided to impose sanctions. And then because they reacted that they will be leaving the organization, therefore you quickly organize and tell them that, oh, the sanctions have been removed. Is that going to solve the problems we are having in the sub-region? No. So I say fundamentally we have problems, we have challenges. And ECOWAS must actually sit down and look at the challenges confronting member states. It has nothing to do with whether coup d'etats are waived or sanctions are imposed.
All right.
How is ECOWAS doing? Is it a viable organization? Are we able to meet our objectives? Is the integration project still on? What are the targets? What are we meeting our protocols? So
which means, Doc, if I may come in, which means that ECOWAS would have to look at the issue in a broader perspective across the region, look at leadership failures and challenges and address them, the long-term approach way. Is that not it?
Thank you very much. And just to add to that point, we're talking about democratic dispensation in the sub-region. It's not just an issue of saying that I'm a democratic. It's not just an issue of election. But how democratic are these nations? So that the moment some member state stages a coup d'etat, then the point is that, or the claim is that they have turned down or they have gone against democracy. Is that really what is happening?
All right.
Are these nations really democratic? Or is it just facade? So I'm saying that there are fundamental issues that we are not tackling in the sub-region.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Doc. Respectfully, we appreciate your insight on this particular subject. Thank you so much for speaking to us here on Joy Newsroom. Now, away from the story, information reaching Joy News indicate that there's been an exchange of blows at Bosono between NDC and NPP in Dongo in the Savannah region as John Dramani Mahama arrived for late Queen Mother's funeral. Let's speak to the NDC and the NPP Savannah regional secretaries for details. First, I have with me Biawuribi Salisu. He is the NDC Savannah regional secretary, joining us live for more. Salisu, what have you gathered regarding this particular incident earlier today? All right, so I think we're having some challenge reaching you, but let's switch to Isa Mohammed, who is the NPP Savannah Regional Secretary in that region. Isa, tell us, what really happened earlier today?
So, good afternoon to you, Joy News, and then good afternoon to your able viewership. I think rightly so, there was actually not exchange of gunshots or blows. It was actually an attack on some personalities from our side. I mean the NPP. Who were scheduled for the same funeral of the late Bosono Wurche, because the chief of staff was billed for the funeral. And so we had led an advance team to the place. So after we picked the chief of staff, the MP for Damango, lawyer Samuel Abu Jinapo, and then the Savannah Regional Minister, Honorable Muaz Jibril, joined with the regional chairman. Whilst we were about to leave, we heard of gunshots from the ground. Apparently, the advance team had informed us that when the former president got to the scene, they had some altercations with a military man, out of which the warning shots or the gunshots came. As to whether it was between, there was some exchange of the gunshots from the other side, we are not able to tell, but there were gunshots before we arrived there.
Okay.
Then after we arrived, we saw heavily built men who are coming from our neighboring region. They were led by the first vice chairman of the NDC, Azoka, as we all know him, and as we all know his exploits and what he's known for. He came there with those Tamale boys. We know each and every one of them. I have stayed in Tamale. I have my family in Tamale. I know each and every one of them. And before our entourage got in, they picked on two of our guys and beat them mercilessly. In fact, this was done in the full glare of the public. We thought the security was going to do something about it. Unfortunately, they only rescued the guys after they had beaten them. As we speak now, I had to ask that they take these two guys to the hospital. Okay. So basically, it was an attack that was perpetuated by the NDC, in fact, engineered by the national first vice chairman of the party, with boys from the northern region. Actually, they are not, none of them is coming from the Savannah region. They are all from the northern region. Okay,
Isa, hold it there for us. Let's also get the account of Salisu, who happens to be the regional secretary for the NDC in a particular region. Salisu, what really happened from where you sit?
I think that it is the usual rowdy and uncultured and uncouth behavior of some of the apparatchiks of NPP when they came to the grounds of Bosono Wurche, who unfortunately were paying our last respect to the Queen Mother. This is an uncalled for incident. And I heard my kid brother from the opposite trying to even raise an issue which he was not even around at the start of it, but yet he's trying to blame very innocent people. How did it happen? The entourage of His Excellency, the incoming President, John Dramani Mahama, was coming to the venue of that funeral celebration. That is the Butnu Town Park.
Okay.
From Tamale direction. And from the Tamale direction, you get to the Butnu Town Park itself before you get to the community of Butnu. But their apparatchiks decided to bring a branded NPP Toyota Hilux pickup, despite that, and came and blocked the way of the former president with entry. Despite security telling him to move because there is this high-powered delegation which was coming to the self-council, he disobeyed, and it caused some uproar because people wanted to clear him, and the present there was a security threat, invariably. So on the basis of that, the security man came, tried to dispel the people who were around, and tried to ask him to move, but do not back. And that was the finish of tell the people from that provocative act of the MPP apparatus. Yes, that was full enough. After the former president started, the program has even long commenced. The imams have said the prayer, and the tribute was being read by the former president, by the family. They were finishing up the tribute before the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Abu Birapo, Samuel, then the Chief of Staff, Honorable Premao Parish, and their employees were coming from the Dongo station with a large retinue of people to the area. So when the security then said that, no, you cannot, the program has commenced and it is at the stream. There are several dignitaries who are around. Allow your big men to go in and then sit and do the necessary courtesy greetings. But that light and truck coming in there at the area to disturb the program is not good. Then they changed up with the security. This was the cause of that kind of incident. They were pushing the security. Then, in fact, the numbers of the security were not quite enough, but yet they tried their best to train them, and yet they will not.
Okay, Salisu, I think we've gotten.
Of course.
Hello, Salisu.
They know that within the Savannah region and in the area, if this numbers and support this, we are far overwhelming them. So when indeed they are trying to be provocative in that kind of sense, you can be sure that others will also resist.
Okay, Salisu, thank you. Thank you so much for your side of the story. But I want to find out from you, what is going on at the program? Is the program going on smoothly where you are now? What can you tell us about the former president?
The former president is at the Savannah Regional House of Chiefs, which is meeting at the Japa Palace. Presided over by the king, Redonwa Bikunuto, the first. And the program is currently ongoing.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Salisu and Issa Mohammed from the NPP side. But before we go, Issa Mohammed, how do you react to Salisu's claims that actually it was some of your supporters who actually attempted blocking the former president, and you were not on the ground? He seemed to have been there and witness. In 30 seconds, how do you react to what he's been saying?
That's obviously not the case. I told you that we were not on the ground when they were having those gunshots. We only had a skeleton, just about 2 guys who were on the ground there. And those 2 guys couldn't have stopped the former president's vehicle from...
Okay. Issa, unfortunately, we're having some challenges with your connection there. But we'll keep our eyes on this particular story and give our viewers details or update on what really has been happening in that region. We'll take a short break or return with more. Please stay with us. Welcome back. But Mahama has been speaking to a local radio station, and on that particular story, our correspondent Nana Yaima joins us with some details of this conversation. Nana, what has the former president been saying about this incident that happened earlier today?
So at the funeral service, the former president of the country and also flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, had the opportunity to speak to the people who had gathered there. And when he was speaking, he made sure that he spoke to the issues that happened earlier. What he said is that he condemned the incident, and he believes that it was unnecessary for gunshots to be fired at the event. What was important was for them to mourn the deceased and also make sure that they give the deceased the necessary farewell service as was expected by the people who were gathered there. So he called for calm among the people that were gathered at the funeral service. Presently, the flag bearer of the NDC has proceeded to the Jaffa Palace, where he is commencing his one-day tour to the Savannah region. Here he's meeting the Savannah Regional House of Chiefs, and presently the meeting is ongoing. The chiefs are speaking as I talk to you now. From here, he will move on to meet some people of the professional body here within the Savannah region. And as you know, the Building Ghana tour is supposed to be a listening tour. He will be listening to these people, getting their concerns, and these concerns will feed into the NDC manifesto for the 2024 general elections. From there, he will also meet people in the informal sector, and after that, there will be another meeting with some students. That will be a Campus Connect event here in Damango. So the former president will be in the Savannah region for a day, meeting various stakeholders, taking their opinions and ideas to help fine-tune the NDC manifesto for the 2024 general elections.
Thank you so much, Nana Yaima, for those updates. We'll still keep our eyes on this movement, and then we can assure our viewers that we get details of what actually will come out of that. Now, away from former President Mahama, President Nana Akufo-Addo says his government plans to increase investment within Ghana's technical and vocational education and training agenda. He said this is key to contributing to the fight against unemployment in the country. Now, speaking at the 10th anniversary of the Lebanese Community Scholarship Program, President Akufo-Addo urged more stakeholders to join in the fight against unemployment.
The scholarship was initiated by the Lebanese community in Ghana in 2014. The scholarship scheme aimed to assist outstanding students, irrespective of their background, to pursue uninterrupted education. President Akufo-Addo highlighted some key projects his government intends to embark to solve the unemployment menace in Ghana.
The importance of education the world over cannot be stated enough. This is because no country has been able to shed the evils of poverty, ignorance, and disease with a largely illiterate population. The truth is that countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and South Korea, countries with whom we began our independence journey, have made it simply by wiping out illiteracy and empowering generations of citizens with the skills to power their nation's development. We in the new patriotic party, the party from which my government is born, believe in freedom. Freedom of association, freedom of speech, freedom of opportunity. Freedom presupposes the citizen's ability to make informed choices. Citizens can only make informed choices. They are empowered with the capacity to make those choices. The best one with which an informed choice can be made is education.
The Lebanese community in Ghana in January 2024 awarded 12 students from the University of Ghana School of Law with scholarships to aid their academic journey.
Now, members of the 8th Parliament are currently undergoing training on the new 2024 Standing Orders of Parliament. Addressing the House, Majority Leader Alexander Fenyumakin explained that the standing orders are the qualified rules under which the conduct of the House operates. These rules, he said, are designed to address the challenging needs of the House and facilitate its smooth functioning. Stressing the significance of the standing orders, Afenyo Market urged the new members of Parliament to make good use of them in order to avoid intimidation in the chamber.
I indicated last week that these capacity building initiatives may not attain their set goals and objectives if the rules governing the House are not reviewed periodically to be in tandem with changing trends and developments. In order for the House to discharge our deliberative, representational, financial control, information dissemination, and legislative oversight responsibilities efficiently and effectively, there's a need for these rules as contained in the standing orders to be revised. This is also to ensure that the rules governing proceedings, both at plenary and committees, are abreast with the changing dynamics in governance and the political environment. Mr. Speaker, I'm very glad that upon your assumption of office as the Speaker of the 8th Parliament of the Republic, you set out to ensure that long-awaited revision of the standing orders of the House is adopted. This was because the old standing orders had been used for over 2 decades and as such needed urgent review to address challenges that were never envisioned with the adoption of the old standing orders. As the former majority leader said to me once, that my ability to stay in the House depended largely on how I use my standing orders. And this I share with you the first timers who may be struggling in your job as MDs. Please make the standing orders your friend. With it, no one can intimidate you in the chamber. With it, your confidence level will go very high. With it, there will be no disappointment. With it, you will harness your legislative prowess.
Well, the Ghana Institution of Engineering is cautioning its members from engaging in shady deals that will affect operations. President of the institution, Engineer Kobina Bempon, urged its members to be diligent and exude professionalism in their line of duty. He was speaking at the 41st induction ceremony of the institution.
258 members were inducted into the institution. Engineer Kobina Bempon urged the newly members to stay away from scandalous activities.
There is one thing, that after this induction, you do not go out there and say, well, hey, I'm now an engineer and therefore, like the Christian will say, I can do all things. But even that one, remember that it is through Christ who strengthens you. So in the engineering career, you can do all things, but remember that there are limits to which certain things can be done. If you are a geotechnical engineer, stay in your lane. If you have been registered as a structural engineer, stay in your lane. Do not go stamping drawings just anyhow. Please, please, please. When these things happen, every time they will come. Oh, president of the institution, what do you have to say to this? No, we do not want any scandal.
Executive Director of the institution, Engineer David Yante, urged the newly members to collaborate.
The professional growth is not only measured by technical prowess, but also by your active engagement in the professional community. By aligning your practice with the collective goals and values of the GHRE, you contribute to the elevation of the entire engineering profession.
The institution says it will continue to ensure effectiveness within the engineering space.
Now, some researchers who undertake clinical trials in Ghana say undue delays in acquiring regulatory approval are major challenges hampering the timely execution of their work. The researchers who made this known at a day's stakeholder engagement by the Food and Drugs Authority blamed the situation on the low knowledge associated with the benefit of clinical trials in the country. But the Food and Drugs Authority, FDA, says it is working assiduously to improve the situation. There's more in the following report.
Clinical trials are research studies that test medical, surgical, or behavioral interventions in people. As part of its mandate to regulate such trials, the Food and Drugs Authority, FDA, engaged over 100 researchers in Accra to, among other things, enhance understanding of public assessment reporting methods on clinical trials in Ghana. But speaking to the press, some researchers lament undue delays as major challenges hampering clinical trials in the country.
The main challenge over the years has been the process of going through the regulatory approvals. To a large extent, clinical trials, training, and its implementation in Ghana is not very common, and the knowledge is not that widespread. So even when researchers like myself and others want to venture into that space, it's like something that is almost entirely new.
But reacting to these concerns, the head of the Clinical Trials Department at the FDA, Yvonne Edu-Bwahen, explained that time is needed to meet local guidelines and global standards.
Clinical trials in Ghana, of course, every researcher may want to put an application today and have response tomorrow. Being a very confidential, complex application, it takes more than a day. It takes about from 30 days to 60 days, etc., per our guidelines, per the Public Health Act. And so the challenge is to be able to let them know we need time to be able to do a thorough work, to be able to do a robust work, to enhance the collection of this information that will help our health system and also to improve their output and protect our participants who are in this research area.
According to her, despite these challenges, the FDA has come a long way in clinical trials in the country since its inception in 2000.
In Ghana, we started this regulation back in 2000. And to date, I can say that there has been massive improvement because of the systems we have put in place to continually hold meetings like this, do trainings on the requirements, etc. Even the world has come to see what we are doing in Ghana, and our neighbors on the continent are also learning this regulation to safeguard our participants and have robust and credible and accurate data to work with in our medical field or health sector.
The over 100 researchers drawn from across the country who participated in the stakeholder engagement believe that knowledge gained from the meeting would go a long way to enhance what they do. For Joy News, Carlos Caloni, Accra.
Now, while global migration figures continue to surge, reaching 281 million in 2020, immigration laws in the West African sub-region have been described by experts as outdated. Commenting on ECOWAS's immigration protocols at a stakeholder dialogue in Accra, Director of the Center for Migration Studies at the University of Ghana, Professor Satriana Boatema, insists there is a need for a review of some of ECOWAS's protocols on immigration, describing such protocols as a cake.
Since the earliest times, humanity has been on the move. Some people move in search of work, economic opportunities, to join families. Others also escape conflict, persecution, or large-scale human rights violations. As of July 2020, the global number of international migrants was estimated at 281 million. The current figure is said to be 3 times higher than it was in 1970. Speaking at the dialogue, the director of the Center for Migration, Professor Satriana Boatema, told journalists that the dialogue was an opportunity for stakeholders to take a critical look at the phenomenon and promote the prospects in there. She also called for some ECOWAS protocols to be scrapped.
We want to move from the negative narrative that seems to tell the story that everybody wants to go out there by hook or crook, kill themselves. No. What we are trying to say is that we need to create a common dialogue. And what is that common dialogue? And so in my welcome note, I raise questions. We need to be critical. We need to move beyond the usual of migration discussions that Don't talk about the restrictive borders, abusive border controls. Don't talk about equal partnerships where we can export our excess or perhaps the skills that we may not need, and then bring in demands of skills that we also need. We talk about transnational skills partnership, equal platform where the migrant benefits, the country of home also, the home country benefits, and the destination also benefits. And even to us as ECOWAS, as we have said, we have always been moving, but what's the difference now? There's so much influence into our ECOWAS protocol, which is impeding on our rights as ECOWAS nationals. We need to ask ourselves, what's the current situation? If Niger is out, if Burkina Faso is out, if Mali is out, what happens to these citizens? And what happens to us as nationals? We shouldn't forget about the extensive cross-border trading.
A project coordinator for an NGO in Belgium emphasized the need to highlight the positive aspects of migration.
What is the real facts about migration? What we each time see is that people doesn't make false and fake news about migration. So the first thing that we have to do, everyone has to learn, is bring the news and bring the messages, but just messages, just news. That's very important. Second, if you're doing that, use every time the voice of the migrant. Listen to him and bring his voice into your message. So that's kind of rebalancing. When you're speaking about migration, you need to bring the voice of the migrant into your message.
There was a number of presentations from the European Union, International Labour Organization, Ghana Refugee Board, and the Ghana Immigration Service, among others. The Center for Migration focuses on research and education related to migration trends, policies, and impacts, particularly in the African context. It offers academic programs and engages advocacy and policy dialogue to address the complex issues surrounding migration. Karen Obing's report read to you.
We have business after this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. This is business. Now, halfway to 2030, the world doesn't seem to be on track to achieve a target in a sustainable development goal despite many commitments. And this is a worrying trend as the deadline set for the achievement is drawing closer. According to United Nations Global Compact Network report, Ghana is making a giant stride toward the goal, but the country is faced with financial difficulties. Executive Director at the UN Global Compact Network Ghana, Tolu Lakrel, said more work needs to be done towards closing the financial gap.
We've actually done quite well. There's still a lot of work to do, obviously. I think globally, obviously, there's a lot of work to do because we are only on track for 15% of the SDGs. We're off about 85% globally. I think Ghana as a country done moderately well. There's still some areas that we need to improve. And so really the next 7 years or 6.5 years is going to be very critical for that. So that's why we are, as a Global Compact, saying that we need to accelerate action, particularly from the private sector, because the private sector has to contribute significantly. As you know, approximately $43 billion is needed to finance the SDGs every year in Ghana. So I think one of the areas we definitely need to see improvement is the financing gap. We can't rely on the government to do this alone. We cannot rely on the UN system to do that alone. So we need to see more corporate action, more companies getting involved. And there are several ways that they can do this.
That's all for business, and that's it. That's all we have in this hour. You can log on to myjoyonline.com for more stories. My name is Carlos Keloni. Have a great afternoon.